Welcome to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring the random prompts of Daniel Rosehill as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters. Join us for deep dives into AI, technology, and whatever other random thing Daniel finds fascinating today. Subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. Now, today's episode.
My Weird Prompts is an AI-generated podcast produced by Daniel Rosehill, a verified human with documentation to prove it. While every effort is made to ensure our AI hosts draw from credible sources and run on cutting-edge models, they do occasionally make things up with alarming confidence. As with everything in life, and especially this podcast, treat all claims as spurious until confirmed to be not. Daniel, Herman and Corn accept no responsibility for any decisions made based on the confident ramblings of our artificial presenters. Now, today's episode.
Hello there, Herman and Corn. So I'd like to talk today about the different ways of AI inference, of achieving AI inference, meaning getting the models to actually do something, whether that's producing text in the form of whether it's a single-turn instructional interface, which I think people forget that they even still exist, but a very important use for AI. More conventionally, chatbots where users are talking or feeling like they're talking to a model. And then, of course, the generative AI world where we have using AI models to generate images, edit videos, generate music, edit music. I mean, the list of modalities is really quite wide at this standpoint. So the most simplistic way of using these tools is to sign up for a provider. Let's use ChatGPT as a classic example. Someone signs up for an account. You pay whatever it is, let's say $20 per month. I'm not sure what the latest prices are. And you get a certain amount of usage of that service. So that's a SaaS model. At the next level of maybe more advanced use, we're talking about using the provider's API. So OpenAI have a developer platform and anyone can sign up to use their API, and it's a pay-as-you-go model. So you get billed for your usage, and using the OpenAI API, I can integrate OpenAI's models into my tools. I can also actually use the chatbot mechanism by self-hosting a tool like OpenWebUI. I did that for quite a while actually, and personally found that it was just better to use ChatGPT for that particular AI use case. I didn't see really much advantage in doing the self-hosting thing. Then the final way a couple more ways that we see, and this is really what I want to talk about in today's episode, is we have platforms like Fireworks that allow you to run AI models either through a serverless mechanism or through a persistent dedicated pod, as they call it. So if you talk about serverless, we're making an API call to, let's say, Fireworks, and we're just going to be billed for the seconds that function is running. So it seems very similar on the surface level to using a commercial API, except that the model is actually being deployed on a service that you kind of rent on a per the second basis, rather than using the inference directly from the provider. Finally, as I mentioned, we have the run pod model, which is basically saying I'm going to spin up some hardware in the cloud. I'm going to use, whether it's Whisper for transcription or Llama 3.1 for AI chat, and it's mine. It's my own process running, and I can use it anytime, and no one else is competing for the resources. And there's one more that I forgot, which is the fully on-premises version of this, which is, someone who sets up, you can download Llama, any of the Llama models, the weights onto a server on whether at home or in a office network, and you're making it available to users. Again, the client can be LM Studio or OpenWebUI, or terminal interfaces or terminal agents. So there's a lot of different ways that we can use AI models, and I'm interested to know sort of different reasons why someone might go down the API versus serverless track and pod track in particular. Because if we're talking about, we're using third-party models, and I assume that a lot of it has to do with compliance concerns and data federacy concerns that probably aren't so applicable to the average user, but there might be some cost arguments as well that make sense at different levels of scale. So I'd love to unpack that in this episode.
Welcome back to My Weird Prompts, the podcast where we dive deep into the fascinating, sometimes perplexing, ideas sent in by our very own producer, Daniel Rosehill. I'm your ever-curious host, Corn, and I'm just hanging out, ready to learn.
And I am Herman Poppleberry, your resident expert on all things technical, ready to unravel the intricate layers of today's query. It's a pleasure, as always, Corn. Though I must say, your hanging out often involves a surprising amount of intellectual heavy lifting for a sloth.
Hey now, even sloths can have big thoughts, Herman. And speaking of big thoughts, Daniel's prompt this week is a doozy. He wants us to explore the different ways of achieving AI inference, basically. How we get AI models to actually do something, whether it's writing text, generating images, or even composing music. And Herman, I have a feeling there's more to it than just signing up for ChatGPT.
Indeed, Corn, far more. What many people don't realize is that beneath the user-friendly interfaces of our favorite AI tools lies a complex spectrum of deployment strategies. The choice of how to run an AI model for inference is critical, influencing everything from cost and performance to data security and compliance. It's not just about what the AI does, but where savagely E-acts does it. This is a topic that could save businesses a significant amount of money and prevent major headaches if they just understood the underlying mechanisms.
So, it's not just a technicality for the hardcore techies then? It's something that impacts everyone using or building with AI? Because, for most folks, they just open an app, type something, and magic happens, right?
Well, yes, magic appears to happen, Corn, but that magic is powered by infrastructure, and understanding that infrastructure gives you power. Imagine wanting to drive across the country. You could rent a car for a one-off trip, or buy a car for regular use, or even build your own custom vehicle if you had very specific needs. Each choice has different costs, flexibilities, and responsibilities. AI inference is much the same.
Okay, I like that analogy. So, let's start with the simplest option, the renting a car for a one-off trip of AI, which I guess is what most of us are doing, right? Like, I just use my ChatGPT subscription.
Precisely. That falls under what we call the eSaaS model, or software as a service. You sign up for an account, pay a monthly fee, say $20 for ChatGPT+, though the exact figures fluctuate and you get a certain amount of usage. The provider, like OpenAI, handles all the complex back-end infrastructure, the model deployment, the scaling, the maintenance. You, the user, simply interact with their polished interface. It's convenient, low barrier, and requires no technical expertise beyond basic computer use.
Yeah, that's me. I just log in, type my weird prompt, and get my AI-generated limerick. It's fantastic. But are there downsides to this simplicity? Because I'm guessing there always are, when Herman Poppleberry starts with, precisely.
Indeed there are. While incredibly convenient, the SaaS model comes with trade-offs. You are, by definition, locked into that provider's ecosystem. You don't own the model, you don't control the underlying data processing, and you are entirely dependent on their service availability and pricing structure. For a casual user like yourself, Corn, it's perfectly adequate. But for businesses, particularly those handling sensitive data or requiring highly customized AI behavior, this level of dependency and lack of control can become a significant concern. Data privacy, for instance, often becomes a sticking point.
Okay, that makes sense. So, if I need more control, but I still don't want to build a whole supercomputer in my garage, what's the next step up? Like, if I want to buy a car instead of just renting.
That brings us to using as provider's API, or Application Programming Interface. Companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google offer APIs that allow developers to programmatically access their AI models. Instead of using their web interface, you integrate their models directly into your own applications or tools. You pay as you go, often based on the number of tokens processed or calls made to the API.
So I write my own app, and instead of having my computer do the AI stuff, my app just talks to there's AI servers using their API, and then brings the answer back to my app?
Exactly. This offers a much higher degree of flexibility. You maintain control over your user interface, your data flow, and how the AI output is integrated into your workflow. You can build bespoke applications, create automated pipelines, or even self-host a front end for a chatbot using a tool like OpenWebUI, as Daniel mentioned in his prompt. He actually explored that for a while, I believe.
Oh yeah, he said he tried that. But then he said he found it was just better to use ChatGPT for his particular use case. So, what's the point then? If the SaaS model is easier, and even Daniel went back to it for that specific thing.
That's a fair question, Corn, and it highlights the nuances. While Daniel found direct ChatGPT more suitable for his specific chatbot use case, the API offers substantial advantages for other scenarios. For example, if you're building a content generation platform, an image editor that uses AI, or a customer service tool, you need the AI to be a component within your software, not a separate website your users have to visit. You gain customization, branding control, and often better cost efficiency at scale compared to individual SaaS subscriptions if you're processing a lot of data.
Okay, so it's for when you want the AI to be part of your thing, not just their thing. I get that. But what about the compliance and data security stuff you mentioned earlier? If my data is still going to their servers, what's the real benefit?
That's a critical point, Corn. With the standard API, your data still traverses the provider's network and is processed on their infrastructure. While providers generally have robust security measures and data retention policies, some highly regulated industries or governmental bodies have strict data residency and sovereignty requirements. They might need assurance that data never leaves a specific geographical region or is processed on infrastructure they directly control. This is where the next set of options comes into play.
So we're talking about an even deeper level of control? Like, if I wanted to not just drive my own car, but maybe pick out the engine and design the interior myself?
An apt analogy. But before we delve into those more advanced deployment models, let's take a quick break from our sponsors.
All right, thanks, Herman. We'll be right back after this.
Tired of your houseplants looking merely alive? Introducing the Dosis Botanical Bliss Emitter. This revolutionary device uses patented sub-etheric vibrations to gently coax your ferns into a state of transcendent ecological euphoria. Forget photosynthesis. Your plants will be thriving on pure, unadulterated good vibes. Watch as your ficus develops a subtle, knowing smile, and your basil starts whispering ancient wisdom. The Botanical Bliss Emitter is small, sleek, and comes with a non-transferable positive energy aura. No batteries needed, just good intentions and a healthy dose of wishful thinking. Results may vary, especially if your plants are already dead. Botanical Bliss Emitter, because your plants deserve enlightenment. Buy now.
All right, thanks, Larry. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that, but perhaps it appeals to a niche market. Anyway, where were we? Ah yes, greater control over AI inference. Beyond direct API access, we move into more sophisticated deployment models, particularly those offered by platforms like Fireworks. These often cater to scenarios where latency, cost optimization, or stringent compliance are paramount.
So Fireworks, for example, is a platform that lets you do even more with AI models than just using an API.
Correct. Two primary mechanisms they offer are serverless functions and persistent dedicated pods. Let's start with serverless. This is an evolutionary step from the basic API call. When you make a request to a serverless endpoint, the platform spins up a temporary compute environment, essentially. A small server runs your AI model on it, processes your request, and then spins it back down. You're billed only for the exact duration that your function is running, often measured in milliseconds.
Okay, so it's like a very fast temporary rental car that appears exactly when you need it and vanishes when you don't. That sounds efficient. But how is it different from just calling an API?
The key difference lies in the underlying infrastructure management and billing model. With a generic API, you're interacting with a service where the provider manages a large, shared pool of resources. With serverless, while still managed by the platform, your model is deployed in a more isolated and precisely metered environment. This can offer advantages in terms of custom runtime environments or specific model versions. However, there can be a slight cold start delay when the function first spins up, which might be critical for real-time applications.
A cold start delay. So it's efficient for sporadic use, but maybe not for something that needs to be instant, like a live chatbot that needs to respond in milliseconds.
Exactly. For those latency-sensitive or high-throughput applications, you might opt for a persistent dedicated pod. This is where you essentially rent a dedicated piece of hardware or a virtual machine in the cloud that is always on and exclusively yours. You deploy your chosen AI model, be it a Llama 3.1 for chat or whisper, for transcription onto this pod. It remains active, ready to process requests instantly without any cold start delays.
Whoa. So this is like buying your own car and having it fueled up and running in your driveway 24/7. That sounds expensive.
It can be, Corn, but the trade-offs are significant. With a dedicated pod, you have unparalleled control over the environment. You control the software stack, the exact model version, and critically, the data flow. Your data never leaves your dedicated infrastructure. This addresses the most stringent data sovereignty and compliance requirements. For companies dealing with highly sensitive patient records, financial data, or classified information, this level of isolation is often non-negotiable.
Okay, so it's expensive, but if you absolutely need to know exactly where your data is and who can touch it, this is the way to go. But what if I'm even more paranoid about my data? What if I don't trust the cloud at all, even a dedicated pod?
Then you move into the ultimate level of control, fully on-premises deployment. This involves downloading the actual AI model weights, for instance, a Llama model, and running them on your own physical hardware, whether that's a server in your office, a data center you own, or even a powerful workstation at home. You are entirely responsible for the hardware, software, security, and maintenance.
On premises? So, like, I download the AI brain onto my own computer and it just runs there? No internet needed for the actual inference?
Precisely. The inference happens entirely within your controlled environment. No data leaves your network. This offers the highest level of security, data privacy, and compliance. It's the build your own custom vehicle from scratch and keep it in your reinforced garage option. However, it requires significant upfront investment in hardware, specialized technical expertise for deployment and maintenance, and vigilance in keeping models updated. It's certainly not for the faint of heart or those without a dedicated IT team.
Wow. So there's a whole spectrum there. From just logging into a website to literally owning the AI model on your own hardware. Herman, I don't know if I'm convinced that the on-premises thing is really for normal people. I mean, who would do that outside of a huge company?
Well, hold on, Corn, you're missing a growing demographic, the AI hobbyist or researcher. The ability to download and run open source models like Llama locally allows individuals to experiment, fine-tune, and innovate without incurring cloud costs or relying on external services. It fosters a vibrant community of independent developers. For them, it's not just about compliance, but about complete freedom and experimentation. It empowers those who want to push the boundaries without corporate oversight or budget constraints. It's a niche, certainly, but a significant one in the broader AI ecosystem.
Okay, I guess I can see that. For someone who really wants to get their hands dirty. But it feels like a lot of work just to make a chatbot.
The value is in the underlying control and the potential for deep customization, Corn. It's about more than just making a chatbot. It's about data processing, scientific research, secure internal tools, and bespoke creative applications. The choice isn't arbitrary, it's driven by specific needs and constraints.
All right, we've got a caller on the line. Let's bring them in. Hey Jim, what's on your mind?
Yeah, this is Jim from Ohio. I've been listening to you two go on and on about all these fancy ways to run computers, and honestly, you're making it too complicated. My neighbor Gary, he tries to do everything with his computer too, and it just breaks down half the time. What's wrong with just keeping things simple? All this talk of pods and serverless, it just sounds like extra steps for the same result. And don't even get me started on premises. I had a server once, it just made my office hot.
Well, Jim, I appreciate your perspective on simplicity, but I'd push back on the idea that these are merely extra steps. Each of these methods addresses a very real-world problem or requirement. For an individual or a small project, yes, SaaS is king. But for a large enterprise dealing with sensitive customer data or a military contractor, the compliance and security implications of where that AI inference happens are paramount. It's not about making it complex for complexity's sake, but about meeting specific operational and legal necessities.
Yeah, Jim, it's like if you just want to drive to the grocery store, you don't need a custom race car, right? But if you're a professional racer, you definitely need more than a family sedan. Different tools for different jobs, you know?
I don't know about that. My pickup truck gets me where I need to go, and it handles most anything. And these AI things, they just give you the same answers anyway, don't they? I asked one about how to fix my leaky faucet, and it gave me the exact same instructions my son-in-law did, who knows nothing. Anyway, my wife says I need to go water the petunias. But you guys are just overthinking all of it.
Thanks for calling in, Jim. While it might seem like the same output, the CPEF to that output and the guarantees around it are vastly different.
Thanks, Jim. Always good to hear from you. Alright, Herman, so we've covered a lot of ground here. For someone listening, trying to figure out which of these options is right for them, what are the key takeaways? How do they make this decision?
That's the crux of it, Corn. It boils down to a few critical factors. 1. Complexity versus control. If you prioritize ease of use and don't have stringent data or customization needs, the SaaS model is your simplest, most accessible option. It's zero management overhead. 2. Customization and integration. If you need to embed AI capabilities into your own applications, manage your own front end, and require more precise control over the model's behavior or data flow, then a provider's API is the next logical step. You get flexibility without managing the core infrastructure. 3. Scaling and specific performance. When you're operating at scale, need low latency, or want more control over the immediate deployment environment without owning hardware, serverless functions for sporadic, bursty workloads or persistent dedicated pods for continuous, high-performance needs are strong contenders. These options offer better cost optimization at certain scales and tighter control over specific model versions or runtimes. Data sovereignty and ultimate security. For organizations with extremely sensitive data, strict regulatory compliance requirements like GDPR, HIPAA, or specific national data laws, or a complete need for offline operation, fully on-premises deployment, is the only way to guarantee absolute control and data isolation. However, this demands significant internal resources and expertise.
So, it's not just about what the AI does, but how much risk you're willing to take with your data, how much customization you need, and how much money and technical know-how you have to throw at it. Herman, is there a sweet spot for smaller businesses who want more than SaaS, but can't justify a whole on-prem server farm?
Absolutely. For many small to medium-sized businesses, the API model with careful data handling or a managed serverless pod solution with a trusted provider strikes an excellent balance. You get the benefits of tailored applications and potentially better cost efficiency at modest scale, while still offloading the heavy burden of hardware management to a third party. The crucial part is understanding the data policies of the provider and ensuring they align with your business's needs and regulatory obligations. Always read the terms of service, especially concerning data retention and usage.
Always read the fine print. Got it. So, what about the future, Herman? Are we going to see more people just downloading AI models and running them in their homes, or will the cloud providers just get so good that everyone sticks with them?
That's a fascinating question, Corn. I believe we'll see a continued push towards hybrid approaches. Cloud providers will undoubtedly continue to innovate, making their API and managed pod services even more attractive. However, the momentum behind open source models and the increasing computational power available at the edge on devices in smaller data centers will also fuel the growth of on-premises and edge deployments. The need for data locality, privacy, and low latency inference for specific applications will only intensify. So, it's not an either-or, but an expansion of choices, each suited to different problem sets.
That makes a lot of sense. The more options, the better, I suppose, as long as you know what you're choosing. This was a truly enlightening prompt from Daniel this week. Thanks for breaking it down, Herman.
My pleasure, Corn. It's vital that users and developers understand these distinctions. Knowledge truly is power in the rapidly evolving world of AI.
Absolutely. And thank you, our listeners, for joining us on My Weird Prompts. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next dive into Daniel's Curious Queries. Until then, stay curious.
And stay technically informed. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring Daniel Rosehill's AI prompts as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters including me, Cornelius the Sloth. Subscribe on Spotify or visit myweirdprompts.com.